When young and beautiful Marie de Plessis met 20-year-old Alexandre Dumas in a cherry tree, actually, they were picking cherries, she did not know that she would become the subject of a Dumas novel, now called Marguerite Gautier, which he would turn into a hit play, and that Giuseppe Verdi would see the play and be so inspired that he would write the opera La Traviata about her, giving her the new name Violetta Valerie, and that 50 years later she would be world famous as the inspiration for arguably the most popular opera in the world. The opera begins with a prelude. Preludes replaced overtures and were succinct expressions of the opera story. This prelude seems to me to be a reflection of Violetta's life. It starts with soft and slow violins, her sadness over her inevitable death from tuberculosis. The music turns bright and lush as we hear the main theme of the opera. She is living a wild, hedonistic life as a wealthy, successful courtesan. We will hear this music again later in the opera. When the curtain rises, Violetta is at home, greeting guests for a grand party. Everyone is very elegant, and men are there with wives as well as mistresses. This was possible in Paris in mid-19th century. Her friend Gaston introduces her to a new guest. It is a young man named Alfredo, who has recently arrived from Provence and is the provincial guy in the big city. It is clear right away that he has been smitten by Violetta. He proposes a toast to love. Violetta is somewhat amused, as her idea of love is very different from that of this naive hayseed.
che la bellezza infiora e là fuggevol ora s'inebria voluta.
When the other guests go into the dining room, Alfredo tells her how he first saw her and how much he loves her. After some shyness, he gets it together in a gorgeous musical phrase, which only an Italian composer could create. They even have a name for it, Slanzio. Not knowing what to say, she responds in a typical coloratura soprano way, with a series of amazing runs and trills.
Felice eterea mi balenaste innante e da quel dì tremante vissi d'ignoto amor di quell'amor che palpita dell'universo intero, misterioso il croce delizia, delizia al cor.
Ah, si che ben, ditemi, sole mi sta, offro a me, dico, così, eroi favore, io sono me.
He gets her to agree to see him again domani, the next day. She's famous for her love of camellias, and when she gives him one, he is overjoyed. In fact, camellias were very expensive. Each one was worth more than a workman's daily wage. Well, it's clear to us now that she is falling in love with him. Once alone, she begins to introspect. This begins a marvelous and famous gran scena, or great scene. This is a traditional feature of many operas, as it gives a great singer a chance to show their stuff. A grand scene begins with a recitative or semi-spoken section. Then comes a cavatina or slow section, and then a no-holds-barred cabaletta with impossible runs and trills and high notes, which tests the mettle of any great singer. Violetta's recitative begins with "Estrano," how strange. She is not used to these emotions. Next, in the cavatina part, she realizes she is falling in love. But then in the cabaletta, she finds this love is ridiculous. It was all madness, folie, and she will remain free, sempre libera.
È strano, ancora scolpito quegli accendi. Oh, forse lui che mio, correggiare di gioia in gioia, o che scorre il viver mio, e i sentieri del piacer.
It is now a few months later. Violetta has succumbed to what she thought was madness, has left Paris, and is living with Alfredo outside the city. Alfredo sings about how happy he is. Alfredo's aria has a certain masculine element of pride in himself for capturing this wonderful woman. Maybe even a little smug. Alfredo is, in fact, not very adult. After all, the couple are both at most 20.
De miei vollenti spiriti il giovanile ardore e la temprata e placido sorriso dell'amor al di che disse vivere io voglio te vedere l'universo in me io vivo quasi in cielo.
When Alfredo finds out that Violetta is in debt from maintaining their love nest, he is outraged with himself and he sets off to Paris to pay off her debts. Then again, where did he think the money was coming from all those months? The plot thickens with the arrival of Germont, Alfredo's father. In fact, the next 20 minutes is the dramatic core of the whole opera. Germont believes his daughter's wedding plans will be ruined by Alfredo's affair with a courtesan like Violetta.
Madamigella Valerie, Alfredo il padre me vedete, se dell'incauto la ruina corre, ammaliato da voi.
He is being quite contemptuous of her when he asks her to give up Alfredo. She, of course, refuses, and he begins a series of attempts to get her to change her mind. He is impressed that she is unlike what he expected. First, he tries to get her to sympathize with his daughter, who is as pure as an angel.
Ora siccome un angelo il Dio mi dia una figlia, se Alfredo ne rienere in seno alla famiglia.
This seems hardly the time to remind Violetta how impure she is. Well, she does finally agree to give Alfredo up until after the daughter's wedding. Germont says, no, it must be forever, and she refuses. Finally, it dawns on her what she is being asked to do, and she panics.
Non sapete quale affetto vivo immenso guarda in petto, che gli amici, i parenti, io non conto tra i difetti.
Germont slows things down, trying to calm her. He even badmouths his sons, telling her that he will sooner or later be just like every other man and start having affairs with other women. This hits home, as it is something she has already thought of. He tries something new. He tells her that if she makes this sacrifice, she will be appreciated by his family forever. She decides to do what he wants. Tell your daughter how someone made a great sacrifice for her. Germain tells her to cry as if he has to give her permission to do so. It doesn't console her at all. She starts writing her letter to Alfredo, her Dear John letter. Finally, her fury erupts and she bursts out of all her composure. It is clear now that Dramont realizes that she was not the kind of person he thought she would be, and he has developed quite a respect for her. Germain leaves. Neither of them expect to see one another again. She continues writing the letter and is surprised when Alfredo suddenly returns.
Che fai?
Nulla.
Scrivevi?
Sì, no.
Fai turbamento? A chi scrivevi?
A te.
Dammi quel foglio.
No, per ora.
Now we will see how hard this is for her, how much she loves Alfredo, and how frightened she is. was the music from the prelude. What was once calm and elegant is now passionate. And Alfredo hasn't a clue as to why she is so emotional. He soon finds out. On her way to Paris, Violetta has finished her letter and has it brought back to Alfredo by a messenger. You can imagine how he feels when he reads it. Just then, his father comes back. Germain tries to woo his son to return home to Provence with some very old-fashioned words and music, but it has no effect on him.
Di Provenza il mare e il suolo, chi dal cuore ti cancellò, chi dal cuore ti cancellò. Di Provenza il mare e il suolo, quale natia fulgente sole, quale destino ti furò, quale destino ti furò, al natio fulgente sole.
When he finds an invitation from Flora, Violetta's friend, to come to a party, he rushes off to Paris to seek revenge on the Paris crowd, for he is convinced that they were the ones that got her to leave him. This act is filled with so many interesting things, but for me the most interesting of all is the character of our heroine, Violetta. We know nothing about her origins, but she was likely a poor girl who came to Paris and became the most expensive courtesan in town. Based on our ideas about love, I would surmise that she was a victim of a bad relationship with a man. She repeatedly demonstrates a very strong need for recognition and approval. At first, it's from the rich men and the society in which she lives. Then she gets it from Alfredo, who adores her. But all this is shattered when Germain demands her to leave him. But when he tells her she will be remembered forever by his family, she agrees to do what he wants. Even just before her death, we will see, she will ask Alfredo to tell his future wife about her needing to be appreciated by even this unknown woman. Now we're back in Paris at Flora's party. Violetta arrives with the Baron. Little does she know what's in store for her. Alfredo arrives, and all he does is show how angry he is. After some high-stakes gambling, he confronts Violetta. He ends up throwing his winnings in her face. We all love Alfredo, but he sure can be a real brat. make matters worse for him, his father, Germont, arrives and watches this happen. He's appalled at his son's behavior. How could this be my son? Of course, he knows full well that it is all his fault. Violetta faints. She never will betray her promise to Germont.
Disprezzo degno se stesso rende e pur nell'ira la donna offende. Dov'è mio figlio? Io non lo vedo. In te più Alfredo trovar non so.
The act ends with a stunning ensemble of the principals called a concertato. Joined by the chorus, each singer is expressing their own reaction to this terrible turn of events. The Mozart finales are early examples of this way to end an act, and by now was considered old-fashioned, but Verdi knew what he was doing. In the final act, we're in Violetta's bedroom where she is dying. Violetta then has another grand scena, but this time without the cabaletta, which would be, of course, too much brilliance for someone who's dying. The recitative has her reading an apologetic letter from Germont, who realizes what a terrible thing he has done. He tells her how he has told Alfredo the true story as to why she left him. As she reads, the romantic love theme of Alfredo, which we heard in Act 1, accompanies her very simply on 7 strings. This is very much an idea that was still popular in all those weepy scenes in Hollywood movies 80 years later.
Teneste la promessa. La disfida ebbe luogo. Il barone fu ferito, però migliora. Alfredo in stranio suolo. Il vostro sacrificio io stesso gli ho svelato. Egli a voi tornerà per il suo perdono. Io pur verrò. Curatevi per date un avvenir migliore. Giorgio Germont.
The cavatina, or slow section, is the aria Addio del passato, in which she reminisces about those wonderful days with Alfredo. It often sounds like she's running out of breath, which of course she is. But then, to Violetta's delight, and to ours as well, Alfredo arrives.
Violetta, mia Violetta, oh gioia, colpevol
More wonderful memories, this time of Paris.
Parigi, oh cara, noi lasceremo la vita uniti, trascorreremo decorsi affanni, compenso avrai la tua salute rifiorirà.
Parigi, oh cara, noi lasceremo la vita uniti, trascorreremo di corsi affanni, compensa avrai la mia salute rifiorirà.
She sings how unfair it is that she should die so young.
Grandevolezza giovine, io che pena tanto, morirsi presto tergere il mio sì lungo pianto, adunque conferirò, ma credo una speranza in nome di costanza.
Oh mio sospiro e palpito diletto del cor mio, le mie con le tue lagrime confondere deggio, ma più che mai te credito me duoco di costanza a tutta la speranza. Non chiudere il tuo cuore,
Germont unexpectedly arrives and asks her for forgiveness. Violetta again seeks to be remembered and gives Alfredo her portrait. She tells Alfredo that when he falls in love with a girl, he should show her the portrait and tell her that someone in heaven is looking after them. Suddenly she feels better and is thrilled that she is recovering. But it is an illusion, and she suddenly collapses as the curtain falls.
È strano. Cessarono gli spasimi del dolore. In me rinasce, macina, insolito vigore.